Hey, everybody. Welcome to our live stream. It has been a heck of a road. This is, I believe, our fifth live stream. And I'm going to go ahead and start first with a quick audio check, make sure everybody out there can hear me and that everybody, that this is the right level and everything sounds okay and everything's working. Make sure that I'm not talking to myself. Sound check, sound check, sound check, checkity check, check, check. All right. Well, it's been a heck of a road. Let me. While we're waiting on that, we've got a pretty good latency today, so there's going to be a little bit of delay from what I say to what you hear. Internet's running a little bit slow today, so we're going to try to be patient with that. Welcome to the 72 people that are now here. Thank you all for being here and being on time. That's so nice of you. I really appreciate you being here. That's awesome. So let's go ahead and bring in Mr. Doug Thorpe, my companion for this series. Welcome, Doug. And
What's up, man?
All right, so Doug, thanks for being here again. We're back. We're doing our thing. So we are going to hold off, if we can, on spoilers for the next 25 minutes. It's 7:03 Central Time right now. Let's do this. 7:30 from now until 7:30, which is 27 or so minutes from now. From now until then, it will be a spoiler-free zone for those of you that are here but have not watched part 2. One, I appreciate your optimism because that never works for me. But you're welcome to try. So we're going to try to stay spoiler-free for the next 20 minutes or so. That should give more people a chance to show up, and we will go from there. We got a Thorpe Thumper. That's funny. Yeah, I understand that I've been talking to some friends that are big in the online space, and they said that in all the ladder, like the platinums and the gold ladders, that all they're really seeing now is some variation of the Thorpe Thump, which I think we thought might happen. I don't know that I expected it to be quite as heavy as they're suggesting, but it's what's interesting is somebody made a video a couple of days ago that was them playing using the Thorpe Thump against the AI, which is like beating up on a rubber doll. Like, it's not really any point to that.
Yeah,
Like the U.S. took Japan on turn 3 or something. It was like the AI is just not built for anything that isn't a really, really standard strategy. So
I've done the same with the AI. It's just like you can't even. I almost feel like playing the AI makes you a worse player.
it
Like
kind of does. Like
it's not helpful.
yeah, I had an interview with Trent Oster. He's the CEO of Beamdog. I don't know, a couple years ago. Not long after it was. Well, it was actually to announce that it was available on iPad or something like that, and we got talking about the AI, and his general position was that the AI wasn't there to be of a challenge to the player, that it was there as a training tool to get you used to moving the pieces around on the board, and so that you could figure out how to use a transport and how to move a bomber from here to there, and the difference between attacking in an industrial raid, and like how to make all the mechanics work. And so he wasn't really interested in making it better because AI stuff is not an inexpensive endeavor. So and for a game that they're charging $10 once for, there's probably not a huge budget for it, So
Yeah, that makes sense.
oh yeah, so oh my god, we got our friends from Down Under checking in. We got a bunch of folks in Australia. Thank you guys for being here. David Whitfield. Um, I was talking to David a little earlier in the comments. He's a little bit under the weather, so everybody send your love to David. He's got himself some bronchitis, and he's been watching our videos from the beginning as a kind of distraction to keep himself feeling good. So I hope you're feeling better soon, David. Thanks for being here. Oh, but I mean, but if you're sick now, are you still sick? Like, and if you're sick now in Australia, are you still sick like a week from now? Like, I don't know how that all works really. It's pretty confusing. All right. Well, that's interesting. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about early on, and then we're going to talk about this some more later, is the Find a Player project that I announced in the video. First, I wanted to get everyone's kind of take on what you thought of that. We've already got 70 or so responses, which is really good. I'm excited about that. Wanted to make sure that the form made sense, that it worked for everybody. Here, I'm going to drop it in the comments here. So that if you haven't seen it, the idea is that you're going to fill out that form, and then as we learn more and get better at this and figure out where people are and what they want to play and how they want to be contacted and all that kind of stuff, that we'll be able to start trying to make these connections for people, right? So one of the things that was a really good call out early is that I, being an American, made the field for postal code numeric, because that's what they are. But apparently, as soon as, and I intellectually knew this but didn't think about it, that of course, as soon as you go to Canada or you go any place else in the world, postal codes have letters in them. So I had to jump back in and make that right. So anyway, so check the form, fill it out. Like I said in the video, we're still working this out, still working out the details and figuring out exactly what we're going to do with all this information. But it should be, I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be interesting. I want to really hear from folks that are already organizing events, right? Like, let's find a way to amplify your event, right? So that I know there's an event in Salt Lake. I know that there's an event in Maryland coming up that I just saw in one of the groups. And I mean, there are groups of Access and Allies people out there. They're just not being amplified. So if we can try to centralize some of that information, I mean, to me, like at the bare minimum, like the Board Game Nation Facebook page could have events listed that with all of the details for how to register for the event in St. Louis, right? Like at a minimum. But unless I get that information, I don't know what to do with that. You know what I mean? So finding people is going to be is to me is the first step. What do you want to play? Where do you want to play it? And how do you want to play? Right. So once we kind of have a better feel for that, we'll have a better sense of direction as to where to go with it. So anyway, but cool.
We got a couple of interesting questions here in the comments already.
Uh-huh.
One is just asking, like, would we prefer to see, in relation to victory conditions, would you like to see more victory territories as opposed to just having to take one to win? So I'll just jump in on that. But it's by James. Yeah. No, that's not it. Yeah, that's it. That's
Yeah,
weird.
that's what. Yeah,
Oh,
that's what it is.
I floated down to the next person. I thought it was. I just looked down. Yeah, yeah. I mean, so that's an interesting question. I mean, the way the game is set up is, it's not that you have to take one to win. It's that there are 13 victory cities, and so the allies start with 7 and the Axis start with 6. So if no victory cities changed hands, the allies actually don't have to take any to win. They could just hold their own. So just want to be sure that that's clarified. But in like Anniversary Edition, there's an equal number of victory cities, and the allies start with 2 more in that version. And so when the Axis take one, then it's equal. And if you end the game with equal number of victory cities, then it's done off of IPCs, like I should say economy, not like money in the bank, but like what the value of your territories are. So anyway, just trying to clarify that and show that there's a nuance between games. But given that there's an uneven number, and again, it's not like you just have to capture one, it's that you have to end with more than your opponent. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, just adding victory cities wouldn't really change that dynamic necessarily, because if you gave each country, an extra victory city, well, the allies would have extras. If you gave the allies one extra and the Axis an extra, then it'd still be in the same situation where the allies would have one more. So I think that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, a lot of that's going to vary based on the version that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And like in 42 second edition, which is what this particular event was settled over, as you mentioned, there's an odd number, which prevents the tie. And it's to me the straightest line for what do you do at the end, right? So, I mean, if I'm playing online or I'm playing casual play, I need 9 or I need 10, depending on my side. But if I go into a tournament game and now I need 8 or 9, like what if I don't have that, right? Does the game end in a tie? That might work if the tournament was a Swiss pairing, right? And that would make a difference. But versus single elimination, which is this was a single elimination tournament. So somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose because it's a bracket, right? You're just going to move forward. But that might be an interesting variable to include. And in fact, it is a variable to include in a Swiss pairing system. So it would be like Doug and I lost, but we lost with 6 victory cities. So we go into the next round with 6 points, right? And then in the next round we win. We're the allies and we got 9, right? So we go into round 3 with 15 points, right? And then by the time you get to the end, then in theory, whoever has the most points is your winner, not necessarily who straight up won or lost each individual round, because it wasn't a complete round of play. We're going to talk more about variables for tournament rules in a little bit. This has been a really big topic in the comments for this video and in others. But there is a question here that I did want to try to grab before it wandered off. Where'd you go? Chico, what's up? Good to see you. James Devereaux. I hope I'm saying that right. Yeah, that's how I say it. James Devereaux. Mr. Devereaux, can you do a quick video or explain how you calculate win percentage at the table? So I thought it might be helpful here. I'm going to jump to a screen share and we can talk about this real quick. Doug and I have slightly different methods for doing this. We get to basically the same place, but it's kind of the same. We're not going to have a spoiler here, but because I'm going to use something from part 1. If I can find it real quick, I'm looking at where I lost 50 IPCs against 6. That was a good time.
That battle. Oh man.
Good gravy. That was crazy, crazy, crazy. Maybe I don't have a good example here. Well, here we can. You know what? This will work. So let me jump to the screen share here. Hey, all right, that worked out pretty well. Okay, good. So when we're looking at a battle like this, so the Russians are invading, and I should say, like, I got creamed by the dice in this particular battle, but that is partially because this was not our best choice. I did not mention this particularly in the video because we didn't get into a lot of the back and forth of individual choices in that particular game.
For the record, I advised against this one.
Yes, that is true. That's true. But it's a team game, Doug. It's a team game. Okay, so maybe this is the perfect example then. So how would we determine that this was a bad idea? Okay, so here's how I do it. So on the attack, I have 4 infantry, which they all have an attack value of 1, so that's 4. I've got a tank and 3 fighters, which is each has an attack value of 3, so that's 12. So I've got a total attack value of 16, which is not a lot. And then the Russians here have 6 tanks, which is they have defended a 3, so that's 18, and then 2 infantry, which is 4 more, which is 22. So they're defending at a 22. I'm attacking at a 16. They have, I have, let's see, I've got 4, 5, 8 hits. They also have 8 hits. So in that category, we don't gain anything. So just immediately you can tell that we're not favored to win in this battle. Now, as I said in the video, our objective in this attack wasn't to win in this battle, but we can say, and this is how I do it, and then Doug, maybe you can talk more about how you walk your brain through this. For me, I've got an attack value of 16. I divide that number by 6. I use the low luck formula, essentially. If you're familiar with this, I take the 16, I divide by 6. I should expect to get 2 hits in the first round. And then I've got 4 of the remaining 6. So I'm likely to get the third hit, right? I don't usually count it. I try to be a little bit more conservative for this. So I would say that I'm probably going to get 2 hits in the first round. And in response with 22, they're probably going to get 5. 4. They're probably going to get 4. Again, because I round up, right? So in theory, the math says that they would get 3 plus with a remainder of 4. So they're probably going to get 4 hits. I think they actually ended up getting 5, but that's just the nature of low luck. But when you're making these kinds of choices, so I think of it in terms of round by round. So in the first round, I'm going to attack. I'm probably going to get 2 hits. They're going to respond. They're probably going to get 3, probably 4 hits. And then I need to make a choice after that. So that's I don't try to think about the battle as a whole. I think about how am I going to do in this round, because that's the only decision I have to make right now. So that's kind of how I go through this. I hope that makes sense. Doug, you want to talk about how you do it?
Yeah, mine's not that different. I mean, Gary already gave the math on the first part of it. I don't necessarily take, okay, I have what was it, a 16 attack or an 18 attack versus a 22, and then kind of like the number of hit points. We each have 8 on either side, and I don't necessarily convert that into low luck. I just compare those numbers. A 16 against a 22 and an 8 versus an 8. I've heard of the format where you actually like add the hit points into the attack power. So, you take 22 plus 8 is 30, 16 plus 8 is 24, and then you just say, okay, I have a 24, they have a 30. Like, it doesn't necessarily come out to a specific formula or number, so I'm not exactly sure what people do once they have those numbers. But that's how I look at it, is I just look at my attack versus their defense, or vice versa if I'm defending my defense against their attack, and then the number of kind of hit points that are there in units. And, depending on the situation, what I find informative about this method is like maybe they have, like, we had a couple of battles in games. I'm not going to be able to give an exact example off the top of my head, or actually I can. In round 1, Gary with Russia tapped that column of tanks. So those tanks hit really strong. They roll 3s, and we attacked with a bunch of 1s, and we had some 3s of our own. But because there were so few tanks and they had no protection, there was no infantry there to really soak any hits up for them. It's almost like every single one of our hits is more valuable than every one of their hits. Every time they hit, our attack power goes down by 1. Every time we hit, their attack power goes down by 3. So that's just like another thing that you can kind of factor in.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't found a complete hard way to do this. So 2 things that I try to keep in mind, right, is statistics over time will work out, and the more dice you have involved, the more likely you are to stay true to that low luck figure. If you're rolling, 30 dice because you're in round 12, you're likely to get X hits, right? You can get pretty close to the math. When you get down to 2 units versus 3 units, or 1 unit versus 2 units, like, it's a coin flip, bro. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Good luck. This is why I like the double Dutch, because you're getting both of those. For those of you that don't know, this is a UK move where you send the 2 transports, one to try to take Borneo, the other to take New Guinea. What you really want, obviously you really want both, but statistically you're favored to win in both battles, but not by very much. But you're certainly likely to get at least one of them. And now that creates a really nice landing space, particularly when you're thinking about the Thorpe Thump. It creates a really nice landing space for American bombers to come down and stage for the attack on Manila. And if they need to be, segued over to fighters, segued over to mainland China. So to me, it's those kinds of situational moments, right? And really what it comes down to is, what's your objective? Right? Like, our objective here wasn't to win. Our objective here was to try to thin down the units, take out the infantry, try to get a couple of tanks before we lost any of the fighters. We didn't want to lose the tank either, but that's how it happened to work out in this particular battle. But yeah, I think that's the easiest way to think about that. I hope that made some kind of sense. All right. Oh, is John Bosch here? I think John's here. Um, John Bosch is our moderator, and he will do his best to try to answer questions or bring them to our attention as necessary, or kick anybody that's unruly, as it were. Um, all right.
I'm trying to look at some.
Another
Yeah.
question from Slip. With all this tournament talk, where can members of the community reach out to you, gentlemen? Well, hi, how you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Yeah, so the easiest way is we've got a Facebook page, and I can drop that in the comments, or you can just go to facebook.com/BoardGameNation, and we're there. Or I'm there. Doug drops by from time to time, but I'm there. And if you need anything in particular, let us know, and we will do our best. I do. I should not mention this because it's just confusing to people, but there is a Board Game Nation Discord channel, but it has two people on it. One of them is my wife. It's just a test account. We're not ready to open that to the public. I mentioned it a few weeks ago, and apparently people have been searching for it. It doesn't exist. For all intents and purposes, it doesn't exist. Right? Don't go looking for it. Facebook right now is the best way on socials to get to us. All right. Only 5 more minutes, and then we're going to get into some spoilers here.
There's a good question from Davis Sentis. I don't know, maybe about midway in the comments. So I'm curious, since you ended up in the finals versus newcomers, do you feel that indicates that the field is wide open for disruption in the competitive scene?
That is a very good question. I would like very much to find it.
It's actually just below where you posted the I don't know what that is, the form, the Google form.
Yeah. Oh, yes. David Curtis. I'm curious, since you ended up in the finals versus newcomers, who were great, by the way. Let me just say that really, really clearly. Like John and Adam, like they were really great at the table, super nice guys, and there was some tournament etiquette that they were still like working out, which was totally fine. It didn't affect their play at the table, and they were just really, really nice. And then when I approached them about doing this video, they were both like, "Yeah, let's go do that. That sounds great." Now it helps that they had already seen like the first round video, so so they had a better idea of what these videos were going to look like and how it was going to work. And so once they kind of understood what we were building, they were eager to join in. And we had two separate sessions to do part one and then part two. If anyone's interested in the production timeline, we did the walkthrough of part two on Sunday afternoon. So between Sunday afternoon and today at 1 is the amount of time that it took to turn that from raw footage to the video. But that doesn't include the recreation of the game and the creation of the slides, which Doug was kind enough to help with. And so yeah, there's a lot of production in that. But they were great for the whole process. So thank you again to John and Adam for doing that for us. Do I feel like that indicates that the field is wide open for disruption in the competitive scene? I think the answer to that question is yes, but I don't think it's by newcomers. I think the answer to this is the John and Adams of the world are going to show up, right? Like I can't tell you how many comments there are out there that say, I can win this, or I'm where do I sign up? Because I'm confident enough that I can get in this thing and do well. And those people are going to show up, and they're going to have a solution to the Thorpe thump that we've never thought of. And they're going to have a whole new strategy that involves Brazil that blows us all away. And I'm excited about that. I think that's great. I think that's great for the game. So yes, I think there will be some disruption. Some of it will be from newcomers, sure, and I think that's cool. But it won't be from newcomers to the game. It'll be people that are like John and Adam that may be newcomers to tournaments, but not to the game itself. So, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, when I looked at the field at least in the very first round of this bracket, there were some guys who I would consider very good Axis and Allies players who I've seen in tournaments a number of times who got knocked out in round one. And again, like it's single elimination, like things can go wrong. You can make mistakes. We made plenty of mistakes. Yeah, yeah, Gary. Like we made plenty of mistakes in this game. Like I don't necessarily think just because you beat someone that you're a better player. I mean, my first time at the Gen Con tournament, my partner and I beat two guys who are way better than us, I would say, at Axis and Allies. We just had the right game at the right time and got through and beat those guys. So I think there's always opportunity in anything that's single elimination. You know, an underdog can win and you can be successful, you know, people who are really good and experienced miss things. You know, it happens in every game. So I think there's definitely opportunity. I don't know if someone who's, you know, hardly ever played is going to show up and win. You know, to Gary's point, but I think it's a cool opportunity for people who don't have a lot of tournament experience. I think they can definitely do well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen at Gen Con. Obviously, with 300,000 plus people watching these videos, there's going to be more people that are going to be there, presumably, than were there in 2023. And so it's a matter of making sure that the tournament is able to accommodate the new folks and everything that's going to go with that. So we may end up with, instead of it being if they want to keep it a single elimination tournament, which I think is okay, instead of 4 rounds, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 6, depending on how many people sign up. But there's got to be space for that, and there's got to be officials for that, and equipment for that, and all of that stuff. So I think that this is another reason why I'm hoping people will fill out the Find a Player form, because we want to try to keep people informed about what's happening as we prepare for the next World Championship, right? So I think that's going to be really important. So we got a big thank you, a big super chat from Jan Fu. Great work on the video series. I'm certain the community would love to see more ANA game recaps in this amazing format. Commentary, details, humor, recap. Really appreciate all the hard work and love the initiative on the Find the Player forum. Jan Fu, thank you very, very much. That is very kind. Thank you for being here and supporting the channel, and to everybody that's been a part of this and provided feedback along the way. And it's just been a heck of a ride, and we're looking forward to doing more. Talking to Renegade about what they want to do. They're interested in several videos in this style, not just for Axis and Allies, but for some other games as well. And am I pointing at it right? I can't tell there. That one and that one maybe. So we'll see how that all plays out, because the World Championship for that game and for that game and for that game are all at Gen Con at the same time. So there may be the ability to try to capture a lot of that content at the same time. So I will be splitting myself into 17 pieces apparently, but I'm not 100% sure. We'll see how it goes. But thank you. And feel free to send the Find a Player link around, right? So if you're in a group, right, and you have a bunch of friends that you play with, feel free to send that link to them and get them to fill it out, so that when they, you know, if you're tired, like John and Adam, if you're tired of just like playing against your friends, well, get some new friends, right? Like let's go find some new friends and continue to expand the community and expand the game, because they're out there. 300,000+ people watch these videos. There's people in this country and around the world that are interested in Axis and Allies events. So we just got to get them and try to put them all in the same place. Not all in the same place. That would be. Can I suggest Brisbane for that? I've always wanted to go to the Gold Coast. So we'll put them there. Jan Fu, thank you very, very much for being here and for the super chat. All right. John Bosch is here. Hey, what's up? Yeah, so John here is pointing out that that we don't host tournaments, but we know about them. And one of the nice things about the success of these videos is that more and more people are aware now of Board Game Nation and are associating us with Access and Allies events, which is perfectly fine with me. Which is why it seemed like we were a good place to try to start acting as a hub for Access and Allies and other games of this ilk, right? So that's kind of what we're after here. So awesome. John's got another comment here. I feel like he might be a little bit of a wise ass here. So John and Doug and I met at Gen Con in, was that 17 or 19?
19.
Yeah, it was 2019. That's when John and Doug beat me. That's how we met, actually. Is losing to what the iteration of the Thorpe Thump was at that time. It's a good game. And I made some friends. So I count myself a winner. Anyway.
That's right.
The more you know. Anyway, anything jumping out at you?
Yeah, there's a comment in there by a Steve Thorpe. Happens to be my brother.
Is he? He's in Chicago,
Yeah.
I heard.
He is. Yep, that's him. So
I know some guys in Chicago that play Axis and Allies.
I was just gonna say the guys we played in the final are in Chicago.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Did you see where it was?
It's like a third of the way down. Maybe it's actually pretty early, early-ish. It's above where you posted the form.
Okay, that's apparently the line of demarcation now.
That's right.
All right, well, go ahead and I'll see if I can find it.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to say a quick thing about my brother. He's the one who introduced me to the game. And man, he was good at Germany. And I like playing the Allies, and he would just crush me time and time again back in Classic. But I eventually teamed together with some of my buddies, and we beat him, and that was like a marquee moment when I was in high school. I was like, yeah, I finally beat my brother in Axis and Allies. It's like, I have arrived. Anyway, so I don't know. This may start turning the corner just a little bit. As far as you said, we were going to wait 30 or so minutes.
Yes. Okay, so if you were in the live chat, all 172 of you, and you do not want to know the outcome of part 2, I'd like to thank you so much for being here, and we'll invite you to go watch part 2 now, because we are now going to start to share and answer questions specifically about that game and the outcome of the game. So, fair warning, spoilers are incoming. So I'll say this about Greg Smorey. I like Greg Smorey a lot, and one of the things he does really well is trophies. He gets somebody to, I don't know who he has make these, but they really are.
He makes them himself.
Really? I thought he had somebody making these.
I'm pretty sure he makes them.
Oh, well, they're phenomenal. I think they're great.
Yeah. The way I understood, yeah, I mean, yeah, he makes them. Yeah,
so
he
we
doesn't
won. That's Doug Thorpe right there, Axis and Allies World Champion.
Right. That's what my shirt says anyway. I don't know if you can even see. It's my shirt. That's what my shirt tells me.
Excellent. Congratulations, sir. Well earned.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Congrats to you too.
Thank you. Okay, so this question, so I may have been a little premature there because this question clearly is a spoiler for part 2.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'll jump in on this, and then Gary, I want to hear your thoughts too. So when Gary and I were preparing for the World Championship, we played, I don't know, was it 5-6 games online,
At least
leading up to Gen Con, in addition to some other things like we went and played the Spring Gathering. But so what we did was I ran, and I think in every one of our games, maybe one I was the Axis, but in the rest of the games I was the Allies and you were the Axis. And part of what we were doing was trying to refine the Pacific strategy, but also Gary played knowing what I was gonna do. So the idea wasn't like him to make his normal moves or do whatever. Like most of those games, he played trying to hard counter the strategy.
How to break it. How to break the Thorpe Thump. Yeah.
Yeah, had a break. And I don't remember exactly. Maybe game 4, game 5. You probably won a couple at that point, definitely in a row. Like I felt like I was just like, man, he's like, I think we figured it out, but this is also getting frustrating. So there was a game that something very very similar happened where he was closing in on Moscow, and I was like, I can't hold Moscow. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull everything out of Moscow and flood it towards Shanghai and just take Shanghai and try to win that way, because America had a good beat on Manila. So my strat was America's going to get Manila, and I'm going to take all of the Soviet armor and air with some infantry that direction. And I did that, and I ended up winning. I was able to put blockers along the road so he couldn't get to India, just like we did in this game. So even though Russia didn't actually have enough moves to get over there and get to Manila in this game, the idea was we can't hold Russia. Our best bet is to retreat out of the capital, put enough there to make them come in with a strong force, because they have to be sure they get it. Send the rest south so that they can either move into uh, Persia in order to block, or if Germany comes down to Persia, they could do a counterattack, which is what happened. So this was actually something that we had just kind of incidentally, because I was getting frustrated because Gary was hard countering the strat, because he figured it out after I don't know how many games it took, but we eventually figured it out. And so that was kind of where this move really originated from.
Well, yeah. I mean, and the thing is, there's not any point in staying there to die,
Yeah.
right? Like, there's you're there's no point in standing there and watching the firing squad, because even if like you make the big stand, there's 19 tanks coming, plus the air units and everything else that's coming. Like, they're still going to be standing there with 12 tanks. How many tanks you think they're going to need to get to Shanghai? It doesn't. They don't need that many. So there's no point of wasting the units. But at the same time, this to me is. So I'm not sure if I can. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Remember we did a bunch of math about whether or not they should have attacked Moscow on turn 3,
Yeah.
right? You remember this? And
Yeah.
we eventually came to the place where we said that they should not have attacked,
Yeah.
because they would have been favored, but not by very much, right? But if they'd have sent this force in, right? This is
Hmm.
after mobilized units. So let me back up a little bit here. Let me just get to their combat moves. Yeah. So if they'd have sent the force that was here with the fighters in, right, they're going to lose those tanks. But they're also going to take out most of this stack of infantry. And then the next round, here comes another stack of tanks and the guys. So the guys that ran away, that ran to Persia, ran to Kazakh to later attack Persia, wouldn't have been there. And they
Hmm.
still would have been in Germany on G4. So I
Yeah.
think that, and again, perfect hindsight, right? So this is not any, what, like, and who thinks about that, right? Like this is playing in tournaments, man. It just changed. Like when you think about it this way, like it really, you have to change how you think about just about every part of it. And your objectives are different because you know, things are further away than you think they are, and things are going to be blocked, and the turn order and all of that stuff. Like, it can be really, really challenging. So, but I think perfect world, perfect hindsight. The best move here was the A move would have been to attack with these 3 infantry, these 6 tanks, the air units, get slaughtered, keep the fighters, land the fighters back here, bring all this in, bring those tanks in, plant 3 bombers here because they got a bunch of money, and then go at it again on G4. All the Russians are dead because they never had a chance to escape, right? And now these guys are probably also still alive because the Russians weren't there to kill them, right? So it completely changes the complexion of that side of the board when you do that. So yeah, that was. But how do you know that? You know what I mean? That's the.
Yeah. Also seen, again, we've mentioned names of a lot of people who are great access knowledge players, I think, in these live streams. And I've seen guys who they know when you can't hold a position, sometimes you pull out of it softly, or you pull enough guys out of it, or you have guys there that can retake it, so when the attacker comes in, wins, you can go back in and capture it. And you pointed that out. I think it was in Russia 4, or no, Russia 5, where you actually maybe could have gone back in and taken the Russian capital,
Mm,
but they had such an overwhelming force that could have come back in. So
right.
even from that perspective, there's ways to, things that you learn along the way when you see, really good players doing that type of stuff. You're like, oh, I'd have never thought to like pull out, let them move into the complex, and then go back in type strats.
Right. Okay. So, Steve, thanks for your question, and thanks for joining us. Um, your brother's a world champion Axis and Allies player. Live with it. I don't know what to tell you. All right. Thank you for training him. Let me try to put a little more positive spin on that. Thank you for training him up for me. I appreciate that because he certainly is an expert dice roller. Particularly, he's clutching round 5.
I
Doug
had some
Thorpe.
really good dice in round 5. It went
Yes,
well,
you
round
did.
4 and round 5 with Britain.
Man, I
I
did
feel like Britain
not.
Yeah. I feel like Britain was like the key of this entire tournament. I mean, you think about round 1, just annihilated the Japanese Navy like multiple times. Round 2, you know, just then round 3, all the naval battles. Like, man, Britain was so clutch for us.
It really was. All right. We got another nice super chat here. Thank you very much. Mopey Hornet. On round 4, Japan was pressuring Hawaii. Could have U.S. split the Marines in sea spots before Hawaii? Yes, they could have, but the thing to remember here is that subs do not block. Um, they don't stop enemy movement. We would have needed a destroyer for that, and they still could have attacked the sea zone. Oh no, yeah, they could have. So the way to have done that, if those were destroyers, the way to have done that would have been to attack those blockers on J4 with a minimum force, like a sub and the fighters or whatever, and then non-combat through to the sea zone around Hawaii and attack it on the next turn. That does leave that fleet out there, continuing to be exposed, presumably with its transports and its guys on it. But one of the things that has been coming up in the comments is, and I think, yeah, we'll look at J4, no, J3.
I made some serious errors with the United States this game. I did not have a good game with the U.S.
Yeah. It was, dude, this is day 4. It's first thing in the morning. Like, this was brutal. Like, rule number 1. All right. So, okay. So let me show me. So this is kind of to your point. So this is the same spot that you were talking about, Mopey Hornet. We are looking at, this is from part 1. This is J3's non-combat move, but their combat move here was to hit this transport over here, right? And of course, bringing out the fighter obligated this carrier to come out. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I think the A move here was. Okay, the A move here is to kill these guys. Is to kill these guys right here. Let me see if I can get my arrow up here so I can kind of leave it there. Right. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to kill this guy and this guy. Right. So remember, these transports are about to die, right? Which means there's only one transport out here for the Americans anywhere. They lost the ones that were supposed to be coming over from 11, and then we made a blunder and left these in 56 in range of the thing. But it's going to split the Japanese fleet, which is no bueno. So the A move here, I think, is to send this bomber
Your arrow's
over.
not moving, I don't
Yeah,
know if
yeah. So it's to move
there.
this bomber into this space, not the fleet. Remember, the land units are alone on Iwo Jima. Okay. And without land units, they can't take Manila. They can't take Shanghai. They can't take Tokyo. They can move around in the Pacific all they want to, but without any land units, it doesn't do them any good. So to me, the A move is to send this bomber in here with a couple of these fighters, right? The fighters are going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, if they survive, to 57, right? So you've sent the one to kill this transport. He's out there. So you've got 3 fighters left. So I'd probably send 2 of them. You really want these guys dead. So the bomber, 2 fighters to kill these 2 guys, then send the other fighter with this battleship, this cruiser, that transport, a guy and an artillery to kill this guy and move the whole fleet over. So now you've got a transport with guys, which is an imminent threat to both Hawaii and San Francisco, with presumably at least 2 fighters on it or more. But more important than any of that is that this transport is now useless. Now, there is a guy. Let me see if I can get a better shot here. Yep, here we go. There is a guy in Hawaii, but now we're going to have to fight about it. And when this fleet tries to come down here, they're going to have to come back. They're going to have to move backwards for 1 turn. So now that's US 3. Let's say that they're successful in picking it up. US 4, US 5. They could still take Manila, or they might be able to get back to Shanghai. They're not going to be able to get both. This is a devastating move for this strategy entirely, right? So again, this is perfect hindsight. So don't feel like this is a critique on anything John or Adam did. This is all happening really fast. So what I would say is that in this moment, there was the opportunity for the Japanese to cripple the Thorpe thumb in killing these 2 land units, and along with the transport that they already took out. But then consolidating the fleet in 57 rather than breaking it up. Now, of course, you broke it up because there was still, they broke it up because there was still a threat here. But if you eliminate this threat, then there's no need to be back there at all. Now, odds are that they're going to swing out here with, and well, the other thing I would do, knowing that at the beginning of the turn, my purchase would have been 2 bombers here. Because now if you're holding Midway, bombers can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if they go out and try to build more transports, they have to then support them. So now it's a whole nother problem if the Japanese hold Midway. So to me, this is the A move in this particular position. Any thoughts on this one, Doug?
Yeah, I think you're right. That would have been a really good move. I think it would have caused the Allies tons and tons of problems. So I don't have anything really to add from that perspective. So I am going to counter a little bit, even though I just want to say that first. I agree. That would have been really devastating. So my only question or thought about that is like, so America goes back and gets the infantry. They build the bombers. America on US 3 goes to Hawaii, gets that one dude. I do think America's going to be able to annihilate that Navy fairly easily. There's just not that much to it. They have extra bombers that are coming in. The bomber down in wherever it is, New Guinea or whatever that is off the bottom is within reach. So I think America's going to be able to smash that Navy pretty thoroughly. End of US 3. It just makes me wonder, okay, that means the 2 Japanese fighters don't get into Shanghai to protect it against Britain's run.
True.
And then America does get one shot at, you know, again, probably Manila, probably not Shanghai. Yeah, I don't know. It just would have been interesting. I think it would have been really, really crushing. It'd be really fascinating to play that out because it does take some defense away. The other thing is I would have to think about this longer, but again, America used a lot of their air force to hit the Japanese Navy on US 4. But if they do it on 3, does it put more of their air force in range to just blow a bunch of the Japanese guys up off of the mainland, Asia? So yeah, I don't know. It would have been really bad. I probably would have just thrown up there on the spot.
At a
I
bare
think
minimum, this would have
yeah.
shaken us.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, again, I just want to be clear. Like, if I were Japan, I saw that. That's what I would have done. Like, I think I would have done that, or maybe some variation of it. But yeah, I would have tried to take out those 3 land units and left America standing there with the pieces of their strategy, their crumbled, destroyed strategy in their hands.
Sorry, I really like how you put that because
Yeah.
that is about what we'd have had left.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so this was
Yeah.
another,
Ill advised.
yeah. So this was another one of those moments. There was one last thought about this J3 move here was that, oh, I'm sorry, it would have been J2. The move out to Iwo. Um, no, it was J3. Sorry. So yeah, because then, well, basically, the idea of splitting up this fleet, instead
Hmm.
of splitting this fleet, ignore the transports that were out here, and then just buy another stack of fighters here for the Japanese, and then just start landing land units and fighters in Shanghai, um,
Yeah.
and and try to push through there. Um, I don't know that would work. We tried a version of that. There was a question that popped through the comments earlier about an industrial complex in Manchuria or in Shanghai. I tried a couple variations of this with Doug, and the problem is that it just becomes a number one target, right? Like, because if the Americans can get a hold of it, that's the game. You might as well just turn it over because you're done. They're going to start buying 3 battleships or 3 bombers, and you're not going to be able to do anything with it.
As 3 battleships would be.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it would be devastating. But if the U.S. is taking Manchuria, they probably also already have some other Manila or Borneo or something like that where they're already starting to make just a stupid amount of money. Um,
Yeah. I have seen the US, I've seen Japan do complexes. I'm not saying it couldn't work, but in a longer game, if you do a complex in the Philippines or on the mainland of Asia, if America does ever get it, like, can you imagine America in this situation with a complex in the Philippines right now? I mean, that's really, really bad for Japan.
yeah, in the game that we played in 2019, you did build an American complex in Borneo, and started building bombers there on turn 4.
You're
And it
right.
was, yeah, it was a mess. It was
I'd
hard.
forgotten that. Because
Yeah.
I knew we don't have a lot of time left. If I do a complex here, it's 1 less bomber, but then I can get my bombers in around earlier to Manila. Yeah.
So this was another instance where a similar thing would have worked. Um, so the Japanese have my arrow go. So this is what is this J4?
Yep.
So this is the start of J4, and there's a couple of things that they can do here that are just nasty, nasty, nasty. Um, Again, though, at this point, I think we're down to like seemingly like seconds to play. The pressure was really, really building here. So the fact that they made any kind of quality move at all is, to me, is really good. So to me, the A move here, and this is, looking back at it, is to send the bomber to kill this guy and take out those bombers. Send that bomber right there and 2 of these fighters with the carrier. So you'd have to send the carrier in to do combat here. It is the theoretical place for the fighters coming out of Manila to land. That won't work, of course, because the carrier will be dead, but it won't matter because this guy is dead, which takes away the Americans' ability to try to take Shanghai, or to try to take anything for that matter, because their nearest land unit is halfway across the Pacific, right? So to me, it's 2 fighters and the bomber in to kill all of this. The bomber will come back, but the fighters will not survive. The carrier won't survive the attack on this sea zone fleet. But then your next step is to break up this land force, kill these 2 guys, kill this guy, and then bring anybody that survives back here. Now, this does give the ability for the British to hit it, right? To try to kill whatever land units are there, land units and fighters that made it over there. And then the theory is then that the Russians would be able to step in and do their thing. And the whatever American air units could also go through there and try to kill those guys. But I heard somebody in the comments earlier today suggesting that being able to take all of this out, right? Take these 5 units, these 2 units, and then you'd be able to stand up. I don't know that that works either, but killing this guy to me seems like a big move. So just a couple of options here, things to look at. But I will say the thing that is, I think, the absolute game changer. And I remember sitting at the table thinking, "Oh God, please don't let them see that." Is on Germany 5. And I'm sure when John and Adam, I don't think we talked about this when we were offline, but I think when John and Adam see this, it's so they attacked India, right? So I had my miracle roll, which wasn't really that much of a miracle. It was just like slightly above average. But it's the best roll I had the whole game. So they were feeling a little deflated because it didn't look like they were going to be able to take India. So instead, what they did was they sent whatever tanks they had, and they saved the fighters for non-combat, and then they sent them to land in Shanghai to act as, blockers or defenders for the Victory City. Now, what I'm suggesting is that instead of doing that, the move was to use the fighter and the bomber to kill these guys.
Yeah, it would have been game over.
That's the game. If they kill that fighter, if that fighter and that bomber, and their favorites, of course, over a guy and a tank, if they kill that guy, that's the game. Because the Americans don't have any more land units. The Russians aren't going to get. The Russians are all dead, right? They can't. There's nobody else in range. I mean, honestly, these are the only 3 land units, other than the one dude standing in Burma, that are even anywhere close. So if they kill this guy and this guy, that's the game. And I think that would have been worth it because they got much better odds in trying to kill the guys in Guangdong versus trying to defend in Jiangsu. So I think that would have been an absolute game ender.
Yeah, it would have been. I mean, the game would have been over.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't have been able to take the Victory City because we didn't have land units after that.
Right. And this is the kind of stuff, man. I mean, at this point I think there's like 8 minutes left on the clock. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what it was when G5 started, but it was very, very little, like 9 minutes or something crazy.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Mistakes were made.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. But thank you very much for the super chat, Moby Hornets. We have one other super chat here from Jetta. I owned a Jetta once. It was a great car. Not much to add as far as the discussion, but I wanted to compliment you guys on the quality of the production. You two are gifted commentators. We're something. I don't know. But no, that's great. Thank you very, very much for watching and supporting the channel. That is very, very kind.
This is Gary's channel. I'm just like the guest speaker here. He did 99% of all the work on all of these videos. I just like showed up and talked about stuff.
Yeah. No, Doug, you've been great. You've been a great partner since I reached out to Doug and I said my intent is to win the world championship. You want to come with me? And I think I sent that text message just like that.
Yep.
I'm going to go win the world championship. You want to come? And then we set out about making a plan and figuring out what strategies we wanted to use, and we did it. So that's amazing. All right, great. Okay, so yeah, and so this is great, David. Damn, so focused on the J4 attack, I didn't even see the opportunity in J5 and G5.
Mm-hmm.
That's where everybody else was too. Like I saw it like right after they started rolling dice. I was like, oh. So yeah, this is what happens when you just play at speed.
The way I remember it is when they were doing that battle, I could be wrong on this, but I thought they actually moved the bomber and the fighter down to go after India. And then they pulled them out, realizing that they could go to Shanghai and defend it. Because I was like, oh crap, I was really wanting that stuff to attack India because I felt like we had a really good chance
Oh
there. And
yeah,
then
yeah,
when
yeah.
they I was like, I still think we got a good shot at it, but it changes the math quite a bit.
Yeah. So yeah. So thank you, Dave. So the GB Fire you pointed out was amazing. Good job to see it during the last 30 minutes of the tournament. Yeah. So it's also easier. There's an old saying: it's easier to do your neighbor's dishes, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and so this is kind of a little bit of that. I mean, you're watching like what in any strategy game, you're always wanting to see what can they do, what can you do, what's available to them, what's not available to them, what can you take away from them, what did the and this is a concept that I think doesn't get enough attention. When they made that move that tripped you up, or that was really hard or was really scary, what did they give up to do that? Right. This is particularly this is a little bit clearer in chess because it's a real common chess thing. Josh Waitzkin did a whole thing about it like 20 years ago. But it was like if your primary piece moves from A to B, when it was in A, it was attacking C and D. It's not attacking C and D anymore, so move to that space, right? Always look at what they left behind. And this is something that is sometimes easier to do when you're not the one who moved the piece because you're focused on what you are gaining versus what you're giving up, just as a human nature thing, I think. But thank you for the call, David. All right.
There's a good question here from Menher Mike. Noob question: is there still a lot of tactical variety, or is the meta locked in? And it's mostly about the luck of the dice. Example: USSR move one is always 9-12. Everything else is wrong? Question mark. I'll just speak to that really quickly. I do think that it's close to the bottom. It seems, yeah, it's not too far up. I do think that the Russia 9-12 is fairly dialed in, but beyond that, I think there's a lot of variety. Um, I mean, Germany can. I've seen viable strategies where they're going fleet against England. They're doing, Gary's Gray Skies, a lot of infantry and air, infantry and artillery maybe on the first round, and then grinding out a lot of tanks after that, and then bombers when you get into later rounds. So I think there's all that to say is I've seen the Allies do, Germany first, Japan first. I've seen different things happen with Japan first strategy. So I think it's pretty open. I mean, if you saw game two, we went toward India with Japan, and then did the reverse and got Hawaii. So I think my opinion is it's pretty wide open. Maybe the first round is pretty dialed in with Russia though.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that actually because like I made a video about 5 Russian openings, and There are 5 different Russian openings in that video, but they really all kind of boil down to variations on the 9-12. Um, and basically the way that I laid it out is most conservative to most aggressive. And I think that being on either end of that spectrum is usually not a great place to be. The overly conservative purchase is to buy 8 infantry, and I tried to show in that video why that doesn't work, because you don't end up with the ability to do anything proactive with it. And then on the opposite end, as a strategy that I named the Russia 30, which is it splits the forces coming out of Karelia, so that they can attack Baltic states, as well as see if I can show you here, so that they can attack. So this is, sorry.
We actually
Anyway, so
used Russia 30 at the spring gathering, and it was successful.
yeah,
Russia
it can work. Let me get a clean plate here.
Yeah, Russia ends around with 30 IPCs, which is pretty nice for.
Well, and if you saved 2, you can get there with a lot. So the Russia 30 opening, it attacks West Russia, but you take it, but you don't end up with a lot of leftover units, because you sent 2. I think I usually send 2 infantry and the artillery to Baltic states, and maybe with the fighter, to take out this tank. This tank is really pretty important. So if you can take on Russia's first turn, if you can take out this tank, all the units in West Russia, the fighter, the bomber, this tank, this artillery, those 2 guys, and that guy, like, that's devastating. Like, that's really hard to come back from, if you're the Russian player. And now Russia has 30 IPCs at the end of their turn, and so the next turn they're buying 10 infantry, or they're buying maybe they're buying a tank, or maybe they're buying another fighter, because I've done that before. But in the deviation, the variation that I put in the video, to show that it was the single most aggressive option, is the purchase was 4 infantry and a bomber. And like, a Russian bomber can make a big difference in a game, but you'd better hope that the Germans aren't trying to get to Moscow, because you're gonna wish you had a fighter when it comes to the defense. So, but yeah, but it's fun. But so I said all that to say that I made the Russia opening video, and then people were asking me, like, so now do a German opening video, and a Russia and a UK opening video, and a Japan, and the US, and I'm like, I would love to do that. The problem is that so much of it is dependent on what immediately came before. Right now, you could lay out some German openings for sure, but once you get past Russia's turn, UK's move has to be tied directly to the overall Allied strategy, or the whole plan falls apart, right? So you can't really say that this is the UK opening. You have to say that it's an Allied strategy, and this is how it happens to open. So that's how I think about it.
It also has to be very responsive to Germany's first move. Like, I don't know how viable of a strategy it is. I did play against one guy who did the carrier build in the Med with Germany. What's it, the Graf Zeppelin or something like that?
Graf Zeppelin, yeah.
And it didn't work, but it put a lot of pressure on Caucus, and Caucus traded hands a time or two, because I think he put a carrier and an extra transport there or something. I don't remember the exact build. And just being it was the very first time I saw it, it was kind of like, oh crap, what's this? And we traded Caucus a couple times, but it just couldn't really keep up.
Yeah, I've tried the Med carrier a few times, and I've never seen it really. I've never seen it successfully really break out of the Med. To me, like, I like the idea of the carrier and the destroyer purchase there, or maybe a carrier and another transport, like on G1, and the idea is from there to push out to 13. Right, and be out in the Atlantic and threatening Brazil and threatening the eastern United States, eastern, central, West Indies, Mexico, Panama Canal. Like, you're threatening all of that plus London. So I like the idea of being a threat to all of those things, but like, it's pretty easily countered. Like, there's a lot of really good ways to to stop that from happening. So it's tricky. Somebody asked in one of the comments if there's a good kill US first strategy that would work in tournaments, and the answer to that question is no.
It
I don't.
shouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't like usually giving like hard, definitive answers when it comes to strategy questions because there's always better strategies. But in the time allowed, I don't see a good way for for someone to build up a force that's strong enough to successfully land. You might be able to get to Eastern Canada. You can certainly get to Alaska, but you're not almost certainly going to get to San Francisco. You're not going to get to DC, not in that amount of time. Not and have your own capital because the Russians and the UK are running around. So,
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, we've got 175 folks here today. Thank you very much for being here. Couple of things. Quick reminder: the form. We're hoping that folks are interested in finding other people to play with. So please take a moment and fill that out, and you'll be joining our Find a Player project. Our objective here is to find folks to play with. You know, it's a real clever name. We worked hard on it. And so not just people, but also places to play. So like 901 Games here in Memphis, Shannon Merritt, who you've seen probably in several of our videos. He owns 901 Games, 901 Toys, 901 Comics, and he wants to host an event. And I think that's great. So let's try to put that together. So if you know somebody that owns a game store in Louisville or in Chicago or Seattle or Brisbane or Sydney or wherever, have them fill out the form. And then we can start trying to figure out, okay, well, I got 5 guys in Brisbane that are all looking for a place to play. Oh, there's a game store that has space for, 3 tables. Let's try to figure out if we can get those people together. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. So awesome. Okay. So yes. Yeah, I did the Russia 30 most often playing face-to-face. But then he immediately smartly says, but I didn't buy the bomber, though. You're a smart man. You're a smart man. It was a thought. It's fine. This, I think, is an interesting idea for a video. I've had a couple of comments like this. So how would the Thorpe Thump be modified to play online or in a casual game without a time limit? And I think, Doug, you're probably better to talk about that than me. So,
Well, to me, the optimal it is a strategy from my perspective that's intentionally optimal around 6 to 7 rounds. But I think the short would be probably building up the US fleet a little bit more. Because if you notice in several of the games, we got to a point where I had to sack the US fleet to take out the Japanese fleet and then open the path. But I think the US can outproduce Japan to where they don't necessarily need to sacrifice their fleet. So I think that would be one thing. Um, Another interesting thing is, again, I mentioned a couple times in the videos, the UK bomber purchase in the sub is I've only done that on 1 game, maybe 2 games before this actual tournament. I usually do different things with the United Kingdom. But because my games, I would say in the past, have normally gone 6 or 7 rounds, I usually get way more American bombers rolling. And so, I mean, I've had games where I've had 8, 9 U.S. bombers. So I think that could play I think that could come into a play in a longer game also. You just get to the point where it's like, you have a good Navy, you have some transports, you have strong carrier presence, and then all you do is crank bombers. But I've had games where when I go into Manila or Shanghai, I'm attacking with 6 to 8 to 9 bombers. Maybe not 9. I'd have to, but in a 7 round game, maybe. So, as a matter of fact, I actually had a game. I'm trying to think about the whole circumstance, but it was similar to this in that I lost the Russian capital, but I had Shanghai, and at the end of US's turn, I flew all of my bombers and all of my fighters from my carriers into India to defend it. And because I was building airplanes there, I ended up with, it was something like 17 fighters in India when Germany attacked. As a matter of fact, this was at the spring gathering. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you remember that game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Maybe that was a year before you came, but I had like 17 Allied fighters. I didn't have a lot of ground troops, but then I had my 6 or 8 bombers, and when they came in with like 23 tanks, but 23 tanks against like 17 fighters, and with a lot of cannon fodder, like I just completely
Yeah,
annihilated them.
you got no
It
shot.
wasn't yeah. So yeah. And anyway, those are a couple of thoughts. But again, the ability to not focus on or do anything against Germany, like there kind of is a time limit on that. Like Russia's eventually going to fall if they're not getting support from the other powers, and so it's a sacrifice. You're trading advances in the Pacific for Germany getting a lot of ground in Europe, potentially against Russia. Again, in this game, you saw the Russian capital fell. As a matter of fact, in the game Bosch and I played against you, you took Russia also. We got Shanghai and Manila and won.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's not. I would have to play it in a 10 or 12 round game. I just usually don't, because by the time America gets into the Philippines and into Asia, if Russia's not gone, the Axis are kind of in a lot of trouble or done already.
Right, because Japan's gotten itself into a place where Tokyo is either lost or on its way there pretty quickly. So,
Yeah, they're just building men because they have no navy and most of their economy is ruined.
right, exactly right. Charles has got himself a super chat. Thank you, Charles. Welcome. Sure, you won Worlds, but can you win GI Joe Axis and Allies? Well, I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna find out because that Weather Dominator, man, that is serious business. And I will not have that kind of thing hanging around my Arctic Circle. There is no way, no how. You get your Cobra out of here. But we will be doing unboxings and how to plays for that game as soon as the physical product is available. We'll have them here. So we're looking forward to seeing that. So fun aside here. I think this is kind of genius, really. Like it's a great way to get a whole new crowd involved in the game, and you can introduce them to the mechanics. And I think this is a really good way to bring more people into Axis and Allies in general. But it would be interesting to have Greg or Mike on to discuss Gen Con or the Gathering. I would absolutely love that. I don't know if they'd be willing or eager to do that. I hope that they would be. I don't know, but yeah, I would love to have them on. But yeah, there's a couple other questions in here about the date for the spring gathering. It is usually Father's Day weekend. The Friday, Saturday before Father's Day that's what it's been the 3 times that I've been. So 2 or 3 times that I've been. So yeah, that's usually when that is. But yeah, I would love to have them talk about it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just in case those who don't, like Greg Smorey, who organizes. He's been the tournament organizer for like 30 years for Gen Con. I think he used to do Origins,
Mm-hmm.
Spring Gathering. He's the guy who put this together. I genuinely think that if there wasn't someone like Greg running these tournaments the first time I came, it might not have been something that I did again. But he just made it such a great experience, so welcoming, so awesome in the way he runs it and organizes it, and just, I mean, he's not getting paid for this. He's putting out his own time, his own money, his own energy to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Big fan of Greg and
Oh yeah,
just all done for the tournaments, for the community. So yeah, it'd be great. You need to get him on here and interview him or something.
yeah, I'd love that. I think that would be great. Thank you for the super chat, Charles. Thanks for being here and supporting the channel. So we're going to come back to that one. So this one, I don't know, James. This is something that is going to be determined later. How long will the World Championship use the Larry Harris 3.0 setup? Any rumors on new setups or versions? I don't know that the 3.0 setup would change. I think that's a pretty good adjustment that creates a lot of balance in the game. And I think the bidding in the game is more about what side people prefer rather than an actual imbalance in the game. There was a comment before, do I think that the game is imbalanced in tournaments to the allies? And I don't think that that's the case. In round 2, we played the Axis and I think had a pretty good victory. And I think I would be curious what the statistic was actually, wins versus losses.
Yeah, I don't know details on that, but again, Greg that we mentioned, I know he was keeping statistics on it, and this is my understanding. So if someone has more accurate information, by all means, correct it. But until the 3.0 setup, I think it was probably commonly understood that the Axis had a pretty distinct advantage, and then once the 3.0 setup came into play, it narrowed the gap significantly and the allies started doing a lot better. And so I don't know if it's 50-50 now, if it's 60-40. I don't really have those stats, but it definitely balanced the game out a lot.
Yeah, my understanding from my conversations with Beamdog is that if you look at their kind of metadata about wins and losses with the 3.0 setup, the Axis in that version are favored ever so slightly. I think it's like 55-45 or 57-43 or something like that. It's close, but it's definitely slanted to the Axis. But there's also some minor rules differences that may account for that variable. So it's a little bit different, but yeah. As far as new versions or setups, I would love to see the anniversary edition settle, or rather the World Championship settled on a different board, like a rotating series of boards, right? So that it's not always 1942 second edition. I would love to see it settled, maybe not in 24 because it'll just be coming out, but the reprint will be available, so there'll be more people to get a chance to play it. I would love to see that as the board that is used for the 25 World Championship. I think that would be very cool. And I think that it would be cool to have it as Europe, or not 41, but you could do some fun, maybe North Africa, like that would be kind of fun. So anyway, so that I would think that would be pretty cool, but I am not in charge of such decisions.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay if it just moved to anniversary.
Yeah. Somebody was asking earlier, do you guys play 50th anniversary edition? Doug is an expert in that. I actually don't own a copy of this game, and I've played it probably half a dozen times, but I'm looking forward to getting the 40th anniversary edition. But yeah. And Renegade actually is interested in a video like this for that game. Maybe not tournament play, but like a play-by-play video of a game of anniversary, which I think would be pretty cool to do. And I mean, Doug, if you know anybody who plays that game,
Know some people.
you might know a guy.
I'm not an expert.
Okay, so I've been getting this question a lot. Shane, Mr. Peach, any chance of a global game recap in this format?
We'll see you in about 3 months, Gary.
Yeah, I'm going to be sleeping under my desk, because that is it takes a really long time to make a video in this format for 1942 second edition. Now, I think it's fair to say that global is probably 2.5 times, maybe 3 times that size with as many units. It is possible, but it will be when I have a staff. But yeah, so maybe, but it would have to be. I'd need some help for sure. All right. 175 viewers right now. Thank you all for being here. Yeah, the Good Captain plays Anniversary. I think that'd be a good collab. Would you agree? Yeah, I'd love to talk to those fine folks over on their channel. They do a nice job, and I've always enjoyed their stuff. Love to talk to them. They'll know how to reach me. Yeah, and if you're here, please take a moment and hit that like button for us. We really, really appreciate that. It helps when people go to watch it again. It helps people find it if there's a good number of likes for the time that people are here. So if you have not hit that like button, please do so now. At the sound of the bell, please do so now. Wait, that's the wrong thing. Sorry, that's not the right button. My bad. Okay, sorry, I got distracted. All right, thank you, Dallas Flyer, for that reminder to hit that like button. I really appreciate that. All right. Oh man, Bora, I would love to do this. Any plans to do a playthrough of War Room in a similar format as this A&A series? Eagle-eyed viewers will notice that there is a copy of War Room over there that was actually a prototype that we opened for the second edition Kickstarter. And as a thank you for doing that, they sent us the Jumbo Pack expansion for that game, which has all the goodies in it. And we've left that sealed, and we've been saving that for a special occasion that may be coming along here very soon. So we'll see. That may be a prize at some point for some lucky citizen of Board Game Nation. So hang on to that. As far as a playthrough video for that, maybe that would take that would also be a considerable endeavor, but certainly not impossible. With time and energy and motivation, we can certainly make that happen. All right, moving on here. No problem, Shane. Okay, so let's talk about this. There's a ton of play clock. Definitely seems to be like the optimal solution. Thanks for the info. So here's my thinking. When I get into thinking about the time for tournaments, here's my dream scenario. I want a separated time pool. I do not like the shared time period because, as many people have pointed out in the comments in the chat today and in comments on the videos, like if Germany would have just taken 8 minutes to take their turn, they could have won. Right? And there's nothing specifically in the rules that would stop them from doing that. It would be ungentlemanly, no doubt about that. But it's, war is sometimes cruel. So there's nothing in the rules that says that they can't do that. So, but what I would say is this. So this is my scenario. You split the time pool, and depending on the variant version of the game, you would give each power a certain amount of time. So, say 1942 second edition, maybe each power gets 50 minutes, and at the end of that shared pool, so it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be broken up by UK or US. It would be all the Allied time would be together. Just to make the math easy, let's say everybody gets an hour. So the Allies get 3 hours, the Axis get 2 hours. And when your time expires, what happens is that everyone on that side, their maximum IPC value is 20. And then everything that goes out after that, in your collect income phase, if this is after your clock has expired. I don't like the idea of your clock expires, you lose. That I don't care for that because it's there's too many variables. So what I'm trying to figure out is when your clock expires and your turn starts, you start a new timer, and for every minute that you use on your turn beyond your regulation time, you lose an IPC when it comes time to collect income. And your max IPC collection is 20. So if you could win with the items that you already have on the board, then continue to play and go ahead and do that. But it's going to be really hard to continue to buy new pieces. So it will bring the game to an end much more quickly. So I think I think it creates a motivation to play more quickly. I think we get way more than 5 rounds in 5 hours because I'm now concerned about my clock, right, versus the shared pool. So I think that people are more inclined to play more quickly. So I think that's what I think may be the best solution to keeping these games in tournament play to a reasonable time limit. But I'm interested in feedback.
I haven't. I don't think I have as many concerns with the timing and all that stuff as you do. I mean, we've talked about this some. Like, I think I would have to think about the like the I think if you were going to change something, probably doing like, you know, the allies get this amount, the Axis get that amount. I think that would probably be a good idea. I would have to even, but yeah, I would really want to nuance it, and obviously it'd have to be play tested and stuff. Because
Right.
there's a part of me that's like, yeah, the easy thing, allies 3, there's 3 countries, Axis 2, there's 2 countries. But you know, I just kind of wonder, like, when a country is going, I don't know if I'm going to say this very clearly, but most of the time spent for your country is not the actual like moves that are happening, right, and the rolling of the dice. So do the allies really, is it really that they get an extra hour? Because it seems like it gives them a lot of extra time to think. Like maybe it's,
Right.
you know,
Maybe
I
both
don't know.
sides. Maybe both sides get 2.5. Right.
Yeah, or 2 hours and 15 minutes and 2 hours and 45 minutes. I don't know. I'm just again
Right.
making
Sure.
that head. But I just haven't. I've had tournament games that have gone slower than I think they should have, but I haven't had like, I don't know that I've had a game. And you, yeah, we heard about your experience. I don't know that
Don't make me tell
I've.
that story again,
Yeah, no, no,
because I
no. I'm
heard
just
that I was not the only person that happened to.
well, yeah,
Will
but
Bird told me that that was not the first time that has happened.
I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I'm just, you shared your experience. I'm just sharing my experience, and my
Sure.
experience, like I think my games have been like, usually, like, to me it feels like if you go to a tournament to sandbag so you can get a trophy, like that's a problem, right? Like, obviously. So to me, like, the people that I've experienced in the community, like the vast majority of them aren't doing that.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
there's times when I've gotten lost in my turn, and it's like, you know, hey, like, let's move. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, like those things happen to people. So you know, those things happen. Hey, you know, it's already been 20 minutes. Like, you guys haven't even move a piece yet. Like, those things happen. But
Right.
anyway, I'm just not as passionate as you
So what do you
are.
want to buy? It's Russia 1. What do you want to buy?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah. So I think that that's how I would like to see a separated time pool with separate time clocks. The specifics of how that works out and what happens when your time expires is something that would take some discussion and some play testing. And I think that there's already some groups out there that are doing something similar to this. And I would love to see what their experience has been and what that's looked like. We got another super chat. Sean, can't thank you enough for spending the long hours to produce this series. It's truly been a pleasure to watch. No, Sean, you're a pleasure. Thank you very much for being here and for supporting the channel. We really appreciate all of that. That is very nice. Thank you very much. All right. Da, 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 da. So, yeah, I was hoping that that we had a couple of folks that were interested in some of the specific. I dropped this live discussion tab on a bunch of different spots in the first video, and some of them were interesting, and some of them it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was editing, and I'm like, I need to put some of these in here. So, so if we don't get to all of those, my apologies. It was a lot of work. One of the questions that we had was about UK2 and the logistics for getting through the Calcutta Crush. I think this is one of those strategies that I really like, particularly, and we used it in round 2. Yeah, in round 2, with the intent of squeezing the middle of the board, and I think it certainly worked pretty well. So let's take a look at that real quick. Hey, all right. I like it. I like it. All right, we don't need this right now. Okay, so I do like this purchase of the. Where is my mouse? Where's my mouse? Oh, there it is. Okay, great. So I do like this purchase, right? I do like the destroyer, and I do like the two transports, but you've got to be aware of where the UK bombers are. Obviously, this was a misstep by the Japanese. They did not account for how far these British bombers can reach. Something I forgot to mention about John and Adam, like something else that really impressed me about them is that they didn't really spend a lot of time playing 1942 second edition. When they play against each other, they play global. So this is one of the reasons why they were overall really good players, but got tripped up on some of the finer points of the map. So this is what led them to miss this move here. Anyway, so I do like this purchase, but you can't leave these guys alone if this is the case. But this isn't all. This is rarely the case. Only if you're playing against someone with a last name Thorpe should you be aware of these bombers. But the logistics of this kind of look like this. On J2, or excuse me, US2, your UK2 rather, you're staging here because you're bracing for all of these guys to come down and land in Burma. And then with this on J2, you're also purchasing 2 bombers. Because once you have control of Burma, once you have control here, which they already had here, but they didn't keep this for very long. Once you have this with a stack of guys on it, these bombers can come down and hit here and land in Burma. And that's really the crux of this, is being able to bring all of the Japanese air units and 3, sometimes 4, if you're lucky, transports worth of guys into Burma on Japan's second turn. So you've got 8, 9, 10 infantry here, or 10 land units, along with 4 or 5 fighters and what at that point would be 3 bombers that can now, and plus these 2 guys can be picked up. So on J3, you can get to India with 15, 16, 17 units. And that is a lot for the Allies to respond to at speed. So the question is, I think really, and I think this is kind of what the question, what the person was getting to, who asked this question earlier in the comments. If Japan had not lost these units, right, and these units were out here, right, we have the Americans out here, do you continue with your Calcutta Crush? Stage here, let the Americans come, right? Now you've got the bombers, you've got all these sea units, and maybe you go ahead and take India. Maybe you take it, maybe you don't, I don't know. Because the 2 bombers are not going to be any help in the defense. And there's going to be more units here than the 2 or 3 bombers, and maybe the fighter can't get into that battle. So this is a pretty good opportunity, I think, for Japan to get really aggressive. And if they can grab India on J3, I don't know how the Thorpe Thumb continues. Of course, the Americans are going to continue to rain hell over here in the Pacific, but it's going to be really hard if they're not getting any help from the British. The point is, like, the UK, the 1-2 punch of the Americans and then the British before the Japanese can go, right? That's the advantage and the real power behind the Thorpe Thumb. If the Russians can get involved, great, but that doesn't often happen because the Germans are basically racing to get to the other side of Moscow. So yeah. So to me, that's the gist of the Calcutta Crush here. I made, this is in one of my videos. I believe that it's in How I Beat the Axis in round 2. I was playing against the AI, so that doesn't really count, but it shows kind of what not to do, but it does allow to show a demonstration of the logistics of the Calcutta Crush, which is what I used in that particular round. I hope that answers the question. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense.
It makes sense to me. Yeah, the guys who gave me the idea of the two bombers and the sub build in India, they took India from me on round 3 when I played them. Using, yeah, basically what you're saying. Very, very, I think it was round 3. Basically what you're saying. So,
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's definitive, but it
yeah,
certainly makes it a whole lot harder for the allies to try to come in here and make pain happen here, because
yeah,
it just becomes much more difficult for there to be allied land units, right? Because
yeah,
the Americans can only bring so many, and they're willing to sack a bunch of fighters to clear a path for the British land units, right? Like that's kind of the 1-2 is the Americans in theory are supposed to come over with all their fighters and all their bombers. That's what the carriers are for, to bring all those fighters, and then the bombers fly all the way across. They're there to cut the grass, right? To smooth it out, right?
good
And
way
then
to
the
put
land units roll in.
it. Roll in.
That's
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that's the basic kind of boil it all down to its finest points, and that's really what the Thorpe Thump is about.
yeah.
All right, all right, all right. So I hope that is helpful. All right. Once again, if you have not done so already, let's see if this is still there. Yep, sure enough. If you have not done so already, thank you for being here. We are inviting folks to join us in our Find a Player project. If you are a person that likes to play things, things that look a lot like Axis and Allies, or you are a person that has a venue, a game store, or a banquet hall, or your own private castle, then cool. Then let us know, and we will try to put you guys together with some players. This is a good question, and Doug, I think you've got an answer for this. The UK sub purchase. I assume that you're talking about the UK1 purchase of the sub that goes with the two bombers. I wondered this myself. I'm curious what your thought is here, Doug. I think I figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the short is see game 1. Like, Japan was able to hit the Japanese Navy. The idea of the sub is if the Navy fragments too much. Can you actually bring that slide up that you just had?
Sure.
If the Japanese Navy fragments too much, the sub is there to soak a hit. So in this slide here, we decided to take the bombers after the 2 transports and the destroyer. But let's just say that these guys had left the carrier up there to protect those transports. I probably would have went sub and 3 bombers against the battleship, cruiser, and destroyer. Because if you blow up, half of the Japanese Navy, it just makes it that much easier for the United States to walk in. So that's really the idea. If you have any Navy left over in Sea Zone 37, I mean, it can just be devastating to Japan. And that sub, so the short is the sub is there to soak a hit for if you get an early or a late swing at the Japanese Navy with Britain. I mean, you could
Yep.
do something else with the $6. Maybe you put a tank in India. That could be something worthwhile. But that's the idea of the sub. Just puts a lot of pressure on the Japanese Navy.
Well, and we did see somebody deal with this by bringing this destroyer down to try to take it out, and that's cool
Yeah.
because it creates fewer Japanese naval units. It just makes it easier to pick it off. So yeah. So I hope that answers the question. I think it does. Thank you very much for the question. Back to here. We've got ourselves another super chat from Cole Corson. Thank you very much, Cole. Thanks for the awesome series. Looking forward to future series. Thank you very much, Cole. So are we. And that is a perfect segue into Comrade's question, which is, what is next for Board Game Nation? Is Doug going to be a regular? God, I hope so. Do you guys have plans to keep up this more prolific pace of content? So somebody made a comment, and I say this with all love, my friends. Somebody made a comment in the for this one. So now it said great videos, and then it had a couple hard spaces, and then it said now make a video like this of this quality every week forever. And my first response was shut up. I was like, I cannot possibly. It is, and I deleted that, of course. And then I was like, no, I need a nap. Um, this has been really, really hard. It's been great, and I'm thrilled that everybody has enjoyed it. And I've enjoyed making them and working with Doug and with John and Adam and everybody else at Renegade. They've been great partners in all of this, but I need a break. And so we're going to take a little bit of a break and catch our breath and regroup. I think there are absolutely Axis and Allies projects in the future. As I said before, the Renegade is interested in a play-by-play like this for Axis and for the anniversary edition, so that people can have a chance to get exposed to that and learn more about how that works. And of course, we're going to have the I'll have a how to play very soon for 1941 for new players that you can send out to folks that are just getting introduced to the game, which is, I think, going to be really helpful. But we're also talking with some other game event hosts or game organizers. So about Robo Rally, about Diplomacy, possibly Acquire, and others. So we'll see what that brings. But just based on the popularity of what we've seen here, then yeah, we're definitely going to be trying to stay in this space as much as possible. And the timing of it, though, will not be week to week. This is a really tough pace to make these at. But sometimes deadlines are good, right? They keep you on track, which is really important, particularly for creatives, right? Like creatives oftentimes like hard schedules, and you get that little panic monster shows up, and you gotta go back to work. But this, I'd like to see my bed, my family. They miss me. So yes, we will be continuing in this space, but we will not be moving at this pace. And Doug, he's my partner. What are you talking about? He's here. We're gonna keep Doug around as much as he's willing. So, all right.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do some more content. Not next Friday night again, probably. But I actually just, it made me think of Charles's comment earlier. Like, it would be super cool to get Greg and Mike on here, and whether it's another live stream or just a video you do, I'd love to be a part of that. But maybe I glossed over Mike in my comments there. Mike helps Greg with the organization of those tournaments, and if I'm correct, Mike has, like, if you look at the stats of people who've won the most tournaments, like, Mike is he holds the number one place, or maybe shares the number one place for who's won the most Axis and Allies tournaments at least
Events.
Greg's
Yeah.
last 30 years. I'm pretty sure Mike's in that position, or up there anyway. So
Rarefied air. Yes.
fantastic to pick their brains on. They know way more about the stuff than we do.
Yeah, for sure. Hello from New Zealand. Hello, my friends from New Zealand. Auckland or Dunedin. Those seem to be the primary places. Garibaldi, you make excellent chocolate. I don't think that's the same company, but I'm just guessing. But thanks for being here. And since the 1990, that's awesome. I think you're playing with the blue blocks. I think I've got one of those back here. So awesome. Welcome. Thanks for being here. This is always a good question. Does ANA Online translate to actual live gameplay, specifically for tournament play? So I guess two things. Let me see if I can try for you. So two things about online play that are very different than live play. One is table presence. There's another person sitting directly across the table from you. That immediately changes the dynamic. There's a time limit in whatever form or fashion that may end up being. There's a time limit, there is time limits online, but they're usually hours in length, which is not the same. But the advantage to playing online is that you get a lot more reps. You get the opportunity to play a lot more games than people who only play face-to-face. So what you'll see face-to-face players do is they'll set the table up and they'll play by themselves, right? And this is how they're kind of getting their reps in and exploring the different strategies for the game, versus playing against other people who may have new ways to challenge them that they hadn't thought of, that they didn't think of sitting alone in their game room, right? So to me, those are the big differences. So is it possible for an online player who's only ever played online to show up and at a tournament and win? Yeah, sure. But it's a big difference. Oh, thank you, Zoso. The defense profile thing is another really big difference. So when you're when you're on the defense and you're choosing hits, like that's an automated system online. You have to make your choices before the combat begins versus being able to make them in a dynamic fashion while combat is happening. This is particularly important in C-Zone 37 when the British go to attack there. Like you want to choose those hits very, very carefully so that you're not giving away a piece that you didn't necessarily need to, or to put you in a position to escape with some success, right? So I think that there's a big, that from a logistical difference, that's the biggest difference. So Doug?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke at length on this, I think, in maybe our second live stream. I would almost say they're different games in some way. The defense profile and choosing your casualties is huge. It's a really big part of, I would say, this strategy, even though maybe it comes into play on the attack more, so you are choosing your casualties. But the first, I don't know, what, 3 times we played online practicing for this, I had my defense profile janky, and it was just like, okay, so I lost my aircraft carrier and all my airplanes went in the water. Okay, that was dumb. Like, and that's on me. But I'm it's probably clear I'm not like the hugest fan of playing online. No offense to that community or the people who do, but I think that's such a big difference. And then the thing I mentioned a video or two ago about like the ability to click on a piece and see where it goes, like particularly your air units, is, oh, can I get this thing into this battle? I didn't think I could. Like being able to identify that over the board, whereas online you can just click on the piece and know where it goes, I think is a giant difference. And if you're relying on clicking on the piece and seeing where the thing goes, that's going to be really tough for you over the board in a tournament situation because you're going to miss a lot of things.
Absolutely. And we talked about this specifically in regards to an attack on the Japanese fleet.
Game 3.
Right. Yeah. Game 3. Yeah. Where there were fighters and bombers that got to C-Zone 48 from everywhere. And so if you're not, fluent in the spaces on the board and where all the units are, it becomes very easy to overlook that stuff. So awesome. So Larry, thank you very much for the question. Specifically for tournament play, I will say I have seen some online tournaments. There's some stuff that's run through, I want to say Manic's Discord channel. I think that he's run a couple of online events. I don't know how many people go to those, but it could be a lot, and I just don't know. But Rick, thank you very much. Great stream, great series. Didn't even know all these variants existed, but apparently the YouTube algorithm did. Yes, I will say the YouTube algorithm has been very generous with us this month. We're somebody apparently likes Axis and Allies at the YouTube, so they've pushed us to a lot of folks that maybe hadn't been in it for a long time. So thanks for being here. We got another super chat, Bob McBobberton. Thank you for being here. That's a mouthful, Bob McBobberton. I've been awake for a long time to say Bob McBobberton. Japan fleet protects Shanghai with 2 planes, land on Shanghai with 1 infantry, 1 AA gun, or an artillery Japan bomber to shore up defense. At what point in the game, Bob? I'm gonna guess you're talking about Japan 4, or was it that?
Well,
Yeah, instead of taking to Iwo Jima, or instead of killing the transport. So Japan 3, they killed the transport, split the fleet. On Japan 4, they jumped out for Iwo Jima, which is like, I remember like looking up and seeing that and being like, oh damn, like, and I remember like my heart sank. I was like, did we just lose? I mean, you figure it out after that, but like when something big moves like that and you didn't see that coming, like, wait a minute, hold on, what? There's a picture in the video where I'm like this, like staring at the board, like trying to figure out what's happening. That I'm pretty sure is that moment.
Well, it was probably like a little bit for us when we pulled the guys out of Russia for them. They're just like, wait a minute, what? Like that's the last thing I thought you'd do. Like pulling the Japanese Navy away from the defense of that victory city wasn't something I anticipated. And like I said in the video, like I think it created some problems and it created some opportunities.
So I would equate them evacuating C Zone 62 to us evacuating Moscow, right? Like they couldn't hold it. They knew they couldn't hold it, and them dying there wasn't going to mean anything useful. And I think that Adam in the video said it right. Like it did draw some forces away from Shanghai, uh, air units that would have gotten there, because the sea units that we had alone, plus the bombers coming over from Western United States that could have landed in Yunnan, would have been more than enough to destroy whatever sea units they had in 62, freeing up however many fighters and bombers to get to Shanghai. So this is a really good this Bob McBoberton. That's just now it's fun to say Bob McBoberton. Um, the this is a fun like rabbit hole to fall down, because now like you have to start thinking about, okay, so if what all do they have in that space? What all can get there that now isn't someplace else? You know what I mean? You end up having to. It becomes its whole alternate universe.
I will say if they hadn't done that, I would not have attacked. I would have wiped the Navy out with America, but I would not have attacked Shanghai. I would have waited till US 5, and I would have been able to bring in, I think, 3 more bombers. So,
So you wouldn't have
yeah,
hit the fleet in 62 if he did that?
no, I would have hit the fleet, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't have taken infantry into Shanghai
Oh,
with
right.
2 bombers and what was it, 2 fighters. I would have
Something like
hit the
that.
and not hit Shanghai itself. I would have waited till those other bombers from the West Coast got over there, and then I would have went into Shanghai with 5 bombers.
Right. Yeah. No, Chico, you're right. We did absolutely have to respond because Honolulu was threatened. The question that Bob McBoberton, I'm going to say that as many times as I can now. Um, the question that Bob McBoberton had was, if they had not moved out to Iwo Jima, would they have been able to stack Shanghai with enough to sustain the defense of it against what now the Americans can bring in force? There was one other thing that I was going to try to point out here. Just as the Japanese could have killed the American land unit, the Americans could have done the same thing to them,
Iwo.
to
Yeah.
Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can find that real quick. What would that have been? US 3?
Um, US 4.
US 4,
I
yeah.
will, I will say if you had to ask me, do I think Bob McBoberton, your idea,
It's
or
fun to
our
say, right?
your idea, Bob McBoberton, if if that is if your idea was better than what they did, I would lean toward your idea. I think stacking Shanghai probably would have been the better move overall. Bob McBoberton.
See? It's hard to get away from. Okay, so let me show you this move here. Let me see if I can. Uh, so just as we had talked about the Japanese killing the American land units, the Americans could have done the same thing here to the Japanese. They could have sent a couple of fighters, three fighters, out into this to kill probably 2, maybe 3 fighters into this to kill these 2 infantry. And if they do that, none of this matters. All of these guys become irrelevant. so that would have been another way to have rapidly diffused this threat. Because
So here,
like send a couple fighters in here, you send the subs, you send these bombers in, you could probably kill most of this, maybe the destroyers, and then you've got, then you've got a cleaner attack here. I don't know, but yeah, I think the thing that nobody thinks about except in tournament play, and this is really thanks to Mr. Doug Thorpe, is sending very expensive units after very inexpensive units, right? Valuing position over IPC value is absolutely critical. Or rather, valuing a unit not based on its original IPC value, but its positional and strategic value at that specific point in the game. And that, I think, is the strategic difference that this strategy really leans on. Do you think that's right?
yeah, I think it's key. Um, like so this position is interesting in a couple of ways because you're right. Like I actually think if Honolulu weren't at threat right now, I think America can probably take Shanghai. I mean, they have 6 fighters.
I did the
They
math.
have,
It's 98%.
yeah, a bombard and 2 bombers. But the question is, how many fighters do you need to send to India? Because we didn't know India was going to go so well. So that was one of the things that, like, when we hit C zone, would you say it's 38, where the Japanese Navy, or no, whatever,
59.
59, where the Japanese navies. If you guys haven't noticed, I don't have the sea zones memorized like Gary does. Like the one over there with the box around it. It's got a white box around it.
Right. The blue one.
Yeah, it's blue. It's got an island in it.
Right.
Um, like maybe I shouldn't have taken as much in to kill the Japanese fleet as I did. I could have overkilled there a little bit. But again, the question wasn't so much like could I have taken the cruiser that way or the battleship to do the bombard. The real question was how many American fighters needed to get to India, and that was the hardest thing about that move to figure out there, because I felt like we needed a lot in there, but we didn't. We ended up Russia did so well, we ended up not needing as many. So
Oh,
yeah.
16,
Anyway.
21. Yeah, I'm one of the things that well, this is one of those things again, and with perfect hindsight, it feels like we sent too many units after this fleet. Like our odds of success were like 98%, and that's cool, and that seems excessive. But if we fail here, we're screwed, right? We
Yeah.
lose because we can't sustain. Like if he has a carrier with if he's got a battleship, a guy in a transport, and an artillery, he can take Hawaii.
If he has the transport left over, he can take Hawaii.
Yeah, I will
Like
say that yeah, no. So one thing that we talked about, or that I was thinking about as we were going through this, is you bought bombers here, right?
Yep.
Thinking that this was going to be the most useful unit at this late in the game. Retrospect, 2 transports.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, could he have gotten? No, I don't think he could have
No,
gotten the train. The carrier's too far away. Yeah. Yeah,
right.
2 trains
So
would have done it for us. Yeah.
if you sink this fleet,
Mm-hmm.
right, then you build 2 transports right here. And so even if this transport survives, but the rest of this fleet is dead, you build maybe a carrier here, a carrier, 2 transports, right? Maybe send 1 fighter back or whatever, so that there's a little bit of defense for it in case the sub and the transport survive, right? So that there's a little bit of cover here, so that even if he does come through and take Honolulu, you do have a shot to come through and try to take it back on US 5. We didn't end up getting to US 5, and I don't think with the time allowed that we would have gotten to US 5. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't.
so this is the kind of like chess move jumble that is really kind of fun, and I'm glad that people have that are enjoying this part of this as much as I am, right? Or as much as I did as I was kind of putting it all together, thinking about like I'm gonna be completely on moment of honesty here from Gary. One of the reasons why it takes so long to recreate these games on the table is that it's hard for me to not like stop for 5 minutes and think about, okay, so Japan moved out to here, but what if the Americans would have done this, this, and this? And I end up kind of falling down that analytical hole while and then I forget to take a picture of the Japanese non-combat move, and I've got to set it back up. And so there's some of that. But yeah, so I hope that is helpful. Let's see if this gets me back to where I want to go. It does not.
Yeah, yeah. I want to make a lot of excuses for myself, so I'm going to shut up. There are Bob McBobberton. There were a lot of mistakes made in this game with the position of my guys on the islands. Like,
oh yeah,
I was not being careful.
Yeah. Dave's got a good question here. So kind of following up on something I said a moment ago, once a unit is purchased, its IPC value is irrelevant. In a way, yeah. I mean, like, it's not like you can trade it in and get your money back. Right?
Yeah.
So like if I bought, if I'm the Americans and I don't buy any transports, but I buy a bunch of guys in artillery to stand in DC and do nothing, then they're worth zero. Right? They have no value at all. Or if I take an American bomber and I fly it to London and I leave it there the whole game, don't attack anything with it, I've made that value zero. It's not worth 12 anymore. That's worth zero. So the value of a unit has to do with its ability to be useful in the game at that moment, or at some future moment, right? I mean, you don't have to worry about like the guy in South Africa, like he'll get there eventually, right? Like, but so his value may start out as zero, but then he may be critically important in stopping that tank from getting through Egypt, right? But that's 4 turns from now. So yeah, I think that it is. But when you're thinking about like when like I added IPC value at the end in terms of losses, that's a useful thing to think about in terms of like how much force is available. It's a good metric for measuring force, unit force.
Yeah. I mean, I like your comment about the guy in South Africa. Like the guy in Malaya will get there eventually, and in some games he gets there faster, and then other games.
Yes. Every now and again he gets a bike and he rides up through Prince Indochina to Thailand, and whatever. These things happen, right? I don't know.
But yeah, it's a relative value of a unit. But I can think of very few circumstances I'd rather have a cruiser than a battleship. You know what I mean? I mean a bomber, because they both cost 12. But bombers are infinitely better. So yeah, it's circumstantial also.
For sure. All right, we are getting closer to the end here. We still got 179 people on, so I'm thrilled that you guys are here. And I hate to leave with everybody here, but let's see if we can get a couple more questions in here. If you're here and you haven't done so already, please hit that like button for us. That would be very helpful. It helps with the algorithm and people finding the chat later on. So we certainly appreciate that. And if you have not,
59 likes on this puppy.
That's right. That's right. And if you have not done so already, please take a look at the Find a Player project and give that a look. And if you are a player and you'd like to be found, please join us. All right. Roddy, I like this question because I like to answer this question. Is it possible to go completely defensive for Russia? Would it last longer? I think the answer to this question is no. I do not like a defensive Russia. Now, you got to be realistic about what forces that you have available to you, right? Don't go crazy. But if you are not providing any kind of threat, then if you're not providing any kind of threat, then that's not a way to win. That's just a slower way to lose, I think. And particularly if your strategy isn't to provide the fullest defense of Moscow, right? Like if you're not waiting for UK fighters to show up or American fighters to show up, right? Because you believe that you can hold, then yeah, I don't see like buying stacks of Russian guys over and over and over again is a useful strategy. I don't like it. I don't think it works particularly well. And I think there's a lot of examples of that. So do you have any thoughts on this one, Doug?
Yeah, briefly. I actually buy more artillery with Russia than Gary does.
Yes, you
But
do.
I really like the fighter round one purchase. Gary's won me over with that strategy. The reason I like the artillery is because it allows you to do those little attacks out and just gives your infantry, more punch. But it also just gives you like more units on the board, higher numbers. Yeah, I have not. Maybe it's because I'm generally a more aggressive Russia player. I've not really been in the situation where I have a stack of 40 guys sitting in the Russian capital. Like I've walked past games like that and I'm like, man, Russia's got a stack of, 35, 40 guys. They just need to take two steps toward Karelia and they can take it just with infantry and their two fighters. But I've just never been in that situation, but it's probably because I'm a little more aggressive with Russia also. So yeah, I don't think the Russia turtle is the best option. I think strafe, you take territories to create blockers, and then usually you're just kind of slowly stepping back, eventually out of West Russia or something in your capital, and yeah, you're trying to hang on for as long as possible.
So, Dave, you're back. Thank you. So, if UK sees Germany buy transports on G1, then UK just finds a way to reinforce London and delay the India buildup. It would slow everything, but Germany cannot hold London. There's a little trickier way to do this. And
Germany cannot hold London. I'm not
so,
following.
so his narration here, his line of thinking, if I've got this right, Dave, feel free to correct me, but I think what you're saying is that Germany cannot successfully make the Sea Lion and take London
Got it.
with
Yeah,
this purchase. And I think that I won't say never, but it's unlikely unless the UK players asleep at the wheel, which is sometimes entirely possible, or you're playing the Beamdog AI, one or the other. Um, then yeah, it's certainly possible. But
I've fallen that wheel.
yeah, right, exactly. So the way that I like to make this play here, and this is in the video how I beat the Axis. How I won is the Axis in 2 turns, and the basic principle here is on G1, it's a purchase of a destroyer and a carrier, and then you land 2 fighters on it, and you keep the cruiser out of the attack in Sea Zone 7, but you send everything else. Maybe you send 1 sub at Sea Zone 11 to try to take out the US stuff, just because that's too juicy of a target. But then at the end of G1, you're standing in Sea Zone 5 with the cruiser, a destroyer, a transport, a carrier with 2 fighters on it. The only thing that the British can bring are 2 fighters and a bomber. You're a 75% chance to defend. At the same time, in this same strategy, you bring out the battleship and the transport out of the med and into Sea Zone 13. You use it to kill the UK cruiser that's there and take Gibraltar from Sea Zone 13 so that your transport is staged out there facing at London. The UK's got to make a choice. They've got to try to take out one of these 2 fleets. They will, if they have any wisdom at all, they will take the battleship with their air units. Hopefully, you get one of their fighters when they comes down. But so now you've only got 1 transport that can get there on G2, but you also have 60 IPCs in the bank. So instead of doing anything else, what the Germans do at that point is now they drop 7 transports. And now all of a sudden you've got 16 land units, and however many, and then at the end of G2, you also end with all of your air power within reach of London. It's devastating if the UK did not play this correctly on UK1 and UK2, because now on G3, you can get to London with 16 land units, 5 or 6 air units, and the cruiser gets an offshore shot. And if the British haven't been buying exactly what they need to build, their best purchase here in this case is usually 7 infantry and a fighter, because they can only build 8 units per turn. The Americans can also hopefully maybe kind of help in this situation, depending on what they have done. But that is really, really hard for the UK to stand up to if they have not seen it coming and anticipated the devastation that can come. And in that instance, oh, you bet your bottom pound that the Germans can take London. There's certainly no doubt about that. All right. Thank you for that, Dave. Appreciate that. All right, my friends. This has been our longest live stream by far. We've had a really, really good time. We will not be here next week, but that does not mean that we will not be back. If we get something on the calendar, then we will certainly make a bunch of noise about that in the Facebook groups. And if you've joined the Find a Player thing, you'll probably get a notification in that as well. Make sure you follow us on Facebook. There'll be some information there. And we will likely be creating some kind of Find a Player Facebook group to kind of start to facilitate all of that. I hope that is useful. Once again, if you have not, please take a moment to fill out that form right there, which is in the chat right now. Also, please hit the like and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all of that. We've had so many folks join us over the last. We have more than doubled in size in the last 30 days. We started the year with 6,000 subscribers, which were great. We were thrilled to have, and now we have almost 13,000, which is just completely amazing and overwhelming. We just passed 1 million views on the channel as a whole, which is a huge threshold. So we're so grateful for all of that support, and because of it, and I think a lot of that is people are discovering the game again, but it's because of this style of video, Doug's help. We couldn't have certainly have done it without Doug. So we want to make sure that we appreciate all that. John Bosch, thank you for moderating our comments. Thank you to my wife and family that have supported us through this process. I'd like to thank the Thorpe family out there just outside of Louisville for all of their support. And they've got a bag of Board Game Nation stickers and pins and coasters and T-shirts headed their way. So I appreciate all of the support. Doug, any thoughts before we wrap it up?
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Appreciate the opportunity to do this with you, Gary, and these live streams have been a lot of fun, and answering the questions. Just shout out to everybody who taught me a crap ton about Axis and Allies. It's like one of those things, feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of all these other people. Shout out to all of them. Can't even name them all, but it's been great. I've enjoyed it, and appreciate the time, and goodbye, everybody. This has been fun.
Yeah, we'll be back. This is not goodbye. This is so long for now. I probably should not say this, but to the however many people, 164 people that are still here, I am going to reach out to some folks to see if they want to join us for this live stream. They may or may not have invented some of the games that we love. So we're going to see if we can't make some of that magic happen and get that would be a heck of a thing. I think that would be very cool. So we'll have to see how that goes. But thank you. Finally, thank you. This has been great. Doug, thank you very much. And we will thank you so much. We'll see you next time.